Alright, so let's do a little bit of arithmetic with fractions. If it's been a while since you've done this, it's really easy to forget the rules. So we'll just go over these real quick and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So we're going to start off with some multiplication of fractions. This tends to be the easiest of the arithmetic to do with the fractions most of the time. So if we have an example like this, 3 divided by 7 times 5 divided by 4, if we want to multiply two fractions together, that just means that we simply need to multiply straight across. So we need to multiply the two numerators together and multiply the two denominators together. So in this case, I'll get 3 times 5, which is 15, over 7 times 4, which is 28. So there's not too much to do in the preparations for these. If it's multiplication, pretty straightforward. Along the same lines, I could take something like this, negative 1/3 times positive 2/5. Again, I'm multiplying straight across, but remember my rules for multiplying negative numbers also have to come into play. So this is a negative number times a positive number, so I know that my answer is going to be negative, since they're two opposite signs. But still, I do the process the same way. 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 5 is 15, and we know that this is a negative number because, again, negative times a positive. So let's look at a little bit of division now. Division is similar, but we have one extra step that we have to deal with in division. So if I have something like this, 3/7 divided by 6/5, in order to do this division, I can just think about taking the denominator and flipping it and multiplying it times the numerator. So in other words, dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by what we call the reciprocal of that fraction, when we flip it and put the switch the numerator and the denominator. So in other words, if I'm going to take 3/7 divided by 6/5, I can really just think of this as 3/7 times, flip the bottom fraction, 5/6. And then from here I know what to do because I know what to do for multiplication of fractions. So now I can just multiply straight across. 3 times 5 is 15, and then 7 times 6 is 42. Let's try one that's a little different. How about 5/4 divided by -2? In this case, -2 is not necessarily a fraction, at least the way we have it written, but remember we can always think of any whole number as a fraction. So I'm actually going to think of this, instead of just -2, I'll think of that as -2 over 1, just so we have it again in the form of fraction divided by fraction. So now 5/4 divided by -2 over 1, I can really just think of it as 5/4 times -1/2. Again, I can multiply straight across, so 5 times 1 is 5, 4 times 2 is 8, and of course it's negative because we have a positive number times a negative number, and we'll get -5/8. I guess for this one as well, if we could continue to simplify this, we could say this is the same thing as 5 over 14, because 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 3 goes into 42 14 times. Alright, so that's multiplication and division. Those tend to be the easier of the two. Whenever we get into addition and subtraction, sometimes we have to do a little bit of work with our fractions before we can get them to work out nicely.